Have you ever heard of the Sodder family incident? On the night of December 24, 1945, a devastating fire consumed the home of George and Jenny Sodder in Fayetteville, West Virginia. Of their 10 children, 5, Maurice, 14, Martha, 12, Louis, 10, Jenny, 8, and Betty, 5, were presumed to have perished in the blaze. However, the absence of any physical remains and a series of peculiar events before and after the fire have led to enduring speculation about their true fate. George Sodder, born Giorgio Soddu in Tula, Sardinia, Italy, immigrated to the United States at the age of 13. He eventually settled in Fayetteville, a small town with a significant Italian immigrant community, where he became a successful businessman, owning a trucking company. George was known for his strong opinions, particularly his outspoken criticism of Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, which led to heated debates within the community. Jenny Cipriani, also of Italian descent, married George, and together they raised 10 children in a 2-story timber frame house just north of town. In the months preceding the fire, a series of unsettling incidents occurred. A man seeking hauling work visited the Sodder home, wandering to the back and pointing out 2 separate fuse boxes, ominously stating, "This is going to cause a fire someday." George found this peculiar, especially since he had recently had the house rewired and inspected by the local power company, which declared it safe. Another individual, attempting to sell life insurance, became irate when George declined. He warned that George's house would go up in smoke and his children would be destroyed due to his dirty remarks about Mussolini. On the night of the fire, around 12:30 a.m., Jenny received a strange phone call from a woman whose voice she did not recognize, asking for someone unfamiliar. In the background, there was laughter and clinking glasses. Jenny later recalled the woman's weird laugh. After the fire, it was discovered that someone had tampered with the electrical wiring leading to the house, contradicting the initial conclusion that the fire was caused by faulty wiring. After the mysterious phone call, Jenny noticed that the lights were still on and the curtains open, unusual as the children typically took care of these chores before bed. She closed up the house and returned to bed. Shortly after, she was awakened by a loud bang on the roof, followed by a rolling noise. Trying to return to sleep, she was soon alerted by the smell of smoke. Upon discovering the fire in George's office, which housed a malfunctioning fuse box, Jenny woke George and their older sons. Despite their frantic efforts, they could not reach the upstairs bedrooms where the younger children slept. The staircase was engulfed in flames, and attempts to retrieve the ladder were thwarted as it was mysteriously missing from its usual spot. George attempted to use his trucks to climb to the children's windows, but inexplicably, neither would start, despite functioning perfectly the day before. With no way to enter the house, the family could only watch in despair as their home was reduced to ashes in less than an hour. The Fayetteville Fire Department, hampered by wartime shortages and a lack of manpower, did not arrive until later that morning. Chief F.J. Morris, who was unable to drive the fire truck and relied on others for assistance, conducted a cursory investigation, declaring the cause to be faulty wiring. However, George had recently had the house rewired, and the power company had inspected it as safe. No remains of the 5 children were found, which was unusual, as fires typically leave bones intact. A state police inspector attributed the fire to faulty wiring, but the family's Christmas lights had remained illuminated during the early stages of the blaze, suggesting otherwise. The coroner's office issued death certificates for the 5 children, attributing their deaths to fire or suffocation. However, the Sodders began to question this conclusion, especially after discovering household appliances intact in the rubble, indicating the fire may not have burned hot enough to completely incinerate the children's bodies. Several puzzling discoveries fueled the Sodders' suspicions. The ladder, crucial for rescue, was found 75 feet away in an embankment, far from its usual location. An investigation revealed that the house's phone line had been cut, not burned, suggesting deliberate sabotage. A woman claimed to have seen the missing children peering from a passing car while the fire was in progress. Another woman, operating a tourist stop between Fayetteville and Charleston, reported seeing the children the morning after the fire. She served them breakfast, noting the presence of a car with Florida license plates. Refusing to accept the official explanation, the Sodder family embarked on a tireless mission to uncover the truth about their missing children. In the 1950s, George and Jenny erected a large billboard along Route 16 near their home. It displayed pictures of the 5 children in a plea for information, offering a $5,000 reward, later increased to $10,000. This billboard became an iconic symbol of their relentless search, staying up for nearly 4 decades. George hired private investigators to explore leads. One detective traveled to a nearby town where a woman claimed to have seen the children. While the investigator found the lead credible, he suddenly disappeared, leaving George and Jenny with even more questions. George traveled across the country following tips and reported sightings, often at great expense and emotional toll. From Tennessee to Florida, he tracked rumors of the children, only to return empty-handed each time. Jenny Sodder, deeply affected by the tragedy, became obsessed with understanding how her children could have disappeared so completely. She repeatedly burned animal bones in her wood stove, trying to replicate the conditions of the house fire. In every case, the bones remained intact, reinforcing her belief that her children could not have been incinerated. Jenny preserved the charred remains of household items from the fire as evidence, hoping they would eventually shed light on what had truly happened. She also wore black mourning clothes for the rest of her life, symbolizing her enduring grief. Over the years, the Sodder case became a breeding ground for theories and speculation. Many believed the children were abducted as an act of revenge for George's outspoken political views. His anti-Mussolini stance was highly polarizing in the Italian-American community. Some suggested the children may have been taken back to Italy. The 1940s saw increased awareness of human trafficking. Some theorists speculated that the children were sold into illegal adoption rings or forced labor. Others suggested a conspiracy involving local authorities, given the hasty investigation and questionable conclusions. The rapid issuance of death certificates and the dismissal of the Sodders' concerns added to these suspicions. A less popular theory is that the children died accidentally, possibly before the fire, and the blaze was staged to cover up the incident. In 1968, over 2 decades after the fire, Jenny received a mysterious envelope postmarked in Kentucky. Inside was a photograph of a young man in his 20s who bore a striking resemblance to her son Louis. On the back of the photograph was a cryptic note. Louis Sodder. I love brother Frankie, Illil boys. A 90132 or 35. Despite hiring a private investigator to track the lead, the Sodders never received answers. The investigator disappeared, and the origin of the photograph remains unknown. George and Jenny passed away without ever learning the truth about their children. George died in 1969, and Jenny in 1989. The remaining Sodder children and their descendants have continued to search for answers, but the case remains one of the most haunting mysteries in American history. To this day, questions linger. Were the children kidnapped? Was the fire a cover-up for a darker crime? Could the children still be alive? The Sodder case is a chilling reminder of how quickly lives can be upended and mysteries born. The absence of closure has ensured that this story endures, captivating true crime enthusiasts and investigators alike. Watch this video, and let us know your thoughts. Could the Sodder children still be out there? Or is the truth something darker than anyone imagined?